Breaking Bread with Nita Little. My name is Leanne Kowalski. I am Nita's collaborator, and I will also be monitoring the chat with questions you might have, either related to the content of this talk or about upcoming events. I sometimes add links if Nita references someone, that sort of a thing. This meeting will be recorded in speaker-only view, and a recording with closed captions made available on Nita's website after. We're so happy to have you here. Today's topic is dancing, in parentheses, living with attentional choice. Our time will be structured as follows, starting with a roughly 30-minute talk from Nita, followed by some discussion, usually about 20 minutes. And then sometimes at the end, we love to share with you a few upcoming things in Nita's world. And without further ado, Nita Little.
Right. And I like to ask people questions early on just so that I get to hear your voices, because once you put your voice here and imprinted it here, you tend to be willing to speak. So I like to have an engaged interaction, especially at the end. So yeah, I'll set out the subject and create a discussion platform, and then we get to talk about it. Okay, here we go. Today's discussion, to support it, I have been reading a really fabulous text. This is it, The Master and His Emissary. It is not a thin going and maybe not everyone's read, so I read it for you. But it is worth reading. It is about the divided brain and the making of the Western world. And it is by Ian McGregor. No, McGilchrist. Sorry, I said McGregor. It's McGilchrist. And he has some, you might enjoy watching him on YouTube. That's another way to get him. But when I got this text because I had seen him speak, and I was just profoundly excited because he was saying things I have said, only his background with the brain gave it this kind of scientific validity that as a dancer, I think I sometimes lack. So, of course, I have dance experience, but his point is exactly why, as a dancer, I lack a certain kind of authority. And that is because this divided brain of ours totally has the left brain, the left hemisphere of the brain has more authority in our current world, not always, but in this particular moment. And I want to get a little bit into that, into the kind of attention that happens when we have an issue like this. The right hemisphere of the brain is is less recognized, and it's the right hemisphere of the brain that dancers use when they're moving, when they're making work, when they're in conversation with the world. Being in conversation with the world is something that I wrote about in the newsletter in the Aside this particular month. And it is a topic that I very often bring up. When I say being in conversation with the world, I mean being in conversation with all that you are experiencing as being, with what you can recognize as existing. I could say universe, but universe sounds a little bit huge. So when I say world, it's graspable in a way that I really want people to understand and grasp. Let's get into this a little bit. And I realize I did not pull up my notes, so I'm pulling up my notes. Here they are. Yes, okay. And I have notes in two different places. So when I turn towards my iPad, you will forgive me, right? So the way we, and this is Gilchrist. The way we experience the world, and even what there is of the world to experience, is dependent on how the brain functions. So, I am very fond of saying the mind and attention, which is a subject that I think is critical and definitely is the subject of this talk. Attention takes a body-mind. The brain is a very important part of this embodied state because it is through the brain and the ways the brain functions that we can organize and be in relations with the world. The rest of the thinking that we do, which is body-based thinking, is also incredibly important. And yet, the brain holds, we all know where there's damage to the brain, there's damage in people's ability to function. So here's the deal about this divided brain. The left hemisphere and the right hemisphere are not equal. They both participate in everything that we do. However, they do so very, very differently. The right hemisphere tends to have a holistic view on the world, holding things in context, seeing relationships within that. The left brain is detail-oriented, gets the bits, is fascinated by detail. Here, I took notes in my book, which I always do. The right brain grounds experience, makes an enriched whole, takes information from the left brain through the corpus callosum and kind of organizes it synthetically. It integrates it into this worldview, this holistic worldview. It is inclusive. It does not separate. It includes. It tolerates ambiguity, doesn't expect everything to be right or wrong. It is easily dismissed as in this particular world, and yet we deeply need it because it is the right brain that can look at a picture and get it. The left brain is very different, functions very differently. It likes to unpack experience and enriches what happens with detail. It makes the implicit, what is there, explicit by getting into that detail. It is exclusive. It likes either this or that. It's analytic, it's fragmentary, and it is unaware of what it's doing. It believes itself wholly, completely. It does not accept ambiguities. Pretty important there. It removes things from their context in order to study them. It is in the left hemisphere that we have our speech centers, because it is the left hemisphere that can do serial processing. We need both hemispheres. really importantly, we do. And what knits these two together is the corpus callosum. But the corpus callosum is really small, not very large. In that, for all this information that both hemispheres have, they do not have a great deal of knowledge about what's happening in the other side. They're not sharing a lot of information. And unfortunately, this is becoming more so, not less so, as the left hemisphere in our cultures becomes dominant, and it is now dominating the right hemisphere. The corpus callosum gets smaller. So the information traveling from one to the other is becoming more inhibited. In fact, the function of the corpus callosum is to inhibit information flow. So we have these two hemispheres that are doing very different things and that are at odds with each other, in fact, with the left hemisphere dominating the right. Now, I set that up as a ground so that we can talk about attention in ways that give you choice about how you're going to think and understand things and how you're going to hold your experience. Because there's some really, really important things about attention. And when I read this text by McGilchrist, I was so excited because he was saying what I wrote about in my dissertation. And I was going, yes, finally, a scientist that gets it. And that was thrilling. So here's his bit on the nature of attention. Attention is not just another function alongside other cognitive functions. Its ontological status is of something prior, get this, prior to functions and even to things. The kind of attention we bring to bear on the world changes the nature of the world we attend to, the very nature of the world in which those functions would be carried out, and in which those things that we see would exist. Attention changes what kind of a thing comes into being for us. In that way, it changes the world. Attention changes the world. So when I say be in conversation with your world, I'm saying attend, notice, and be attentional. Being attentional means noticing attention. Attention to attention is to be attentional. If you notice how you're paying attention to me right now, you have to notice that you're paying attention to me, right? You are paying attention to me, hopefully, and your notes. And you're swinging back and forth from your notes to me to what I'm saying. And sometimes you're trying to write notes and listen at the same time. And all of that, knowing what you're doing, is to be attentional. Right? Okay. So for us to have any choice in the world, any choice at all, we have to be attentional. We have to notice our noticing. We can't just default to the way we attend. Why? Because we create the world through how we are attending. And all of us have gone to school. Anybody here not gone to school? Those of you that were homeschooled still got the same damn problem. Probably you might have had parents that had a more holistic take on things and allowed greater play in your learning. But if you attended school, you were taught mostly beyond, second and third grade, especially starting in third grade when you were taught to read and all that stuff. Especially, but right from the get-go, you were trained to be detail-oriented. Your attention was narrowed. You were taught to eliminate what was not critical to the current attending event, and to stay focused on something very singular. Now, focus and an ability to attend is critical to everything, including right brain functions. You can't attend, you can't grasp, you can't hold the world. Actually, I use the word grasp, and grasping is a left brain function. It is how to get it. How to get it. We got to be able to get it. But we also have to be able to hold it. And in context, to know. Now, the focus of McGilchrist's work is not on what the brain does, so much as how the brain does what it does. So everything I'm talking about is the how. He's looking not to find correlates between this part of the brain and that function, but he's looking to see how is it that this magnificent organ participates in attending to the world. How does it bring things into being? Yeah. These two parts of our brain have very different ways of being. They have very, very different values. And they are not commensurable. They're not equivalent. They don't do the same thing, even though they will deal with the same issue. They'll be participatory in everything you do, and they're not doing it the same way. Their values are very different. And so inside of you, you've got very different values happening. Does that ring true to you, to your experience? Yeah. Some of us, we're not all the same, thank God. And so in some of us, the left hemisphere dominates more than in others. The interesting thing of what McGilchrist is pointing out is that the brain changes and has changed over the centuries. And the way that our brain has been changing has changed the world, how we attend and thus change the world. Exactly. So deeply embedded in our history is the fact that our hemispheres have been, in a sense, competing for our attention. And yet, what's happened is that the left hemisphere has won right now. It apparently, or is winning. As I said, the corpus callosum is getting smaller as we become progressively more detailed oriented, and miss the context of the world. We miss the liveliness of things. Apparently, over a third of the children being educated right now have to be taught how to recognize emotions on faces. That never used to happen. It was inborn. So this is happening quite rapidly, that children's brains are being changed by the way we are changing the world. Well, we can all say, well, it's technology, but in fact, it's left brain thinking that created that technology that supports and puts forth that technology as as having a grasp of reality. Children, not only in not being able to recognize faces, they're losing their ability to be empathic. And they are losing their ability to sustain attention. So, okay. So they're hopping around all the time from this to that, to this to that, to this to that, in terms of what's happening with their attention. These are problematic. And for me, of course, the solution is dancing, is our relational practices. I want to go back to talking about attention because it's so important. Attention also changes who we are, we who are doing the attending. I won't go further into that, but to really say this is deeply and profoundly personal. How you attend becomes who you are. A lovely thing he says, through the direction and nature of our attention, we prove ourselves to be partners in creation, both of the world and of ourselves. Values enter through the way in which those functions, meaning our cognitive functions, are exercised. They can be used in different ways for different purposes to different ends. Attention, however, intrinsically is a way in which, not a thing. It is a way in which things happen. It is not a thing. Do not think of attention as a thing. It's not an object. It's an action. It's a process. It is a howness. It's how we do, how we know the world. Okay. And last but not least, I'm going to say, if it is true that attention changes the nature of what we find, how do we decide the most appropriate attention for that? So this is a huge subject. And as movers, you have been learning to attend not just with your eyes. You have been learning to attend with your felt sensing. You have been learning to narrow your attention, but also to expand and open and hold it open for sustained periods of time. You have been learning to feel on as many levels, somatic levels as you can. And all of this action supports wholeness, or a sense of being in and of the world. And as I would say, as the world. You stop holding yourself separate from the world, this or that, and you start actually experiencing the being as a world. You are the world you are creating. You are not separate from that thing. As the world comes into being, it is you, and you are it. So when we do that work of experiencing, of being embedded in our liveliness, we also need to be aware of how we are embedding. It's a conundrum. Humans are such fascinating beings that we have this capacity to step out. That's left brain, step out to experience what it is we are actually engaged in as being engaged, and then step in and be profoundly engaged in that liveliness of being in relations with the world. Here's a critical thing. Yeah, I want to read this quote because I think it's really a good one. Maybe I have it here. Wrote it down, not sure where I have it for you guys. Been through all of this. No, I'm not going to find it. Okay, I'll look for it. Maybe I'll put it in a newsletter in an aside. So let's talk about dancing first, and when we dance, how we start to practice our attentional skills. Oh my gosh, look at how the time. This has been running fast. So we're going to go over a little bit, okay? Because there's just too much here. So when we're dancing, there is this, we can start with a base of understanding that every moment is a relational moment. There is nothing you experience that is not relational. The world comes into being because you are in relations. And so if you start from that understanding, the job is to take care of your relations. The dancing job is to care for your relations. What could that possibly mean? And I put that to all of you because as dancers, each one of you is answering that question. If what's important about relations is inside of you, and you're looking at these felt sensing that's going on inside, then that's significant to know what's happening that I am being. If you're knitting what's happening inside with what's going on outside outside beyond this flesh form, and recognizing those relations with something that is not human, the more than human world, then you are knitting that. If you are recognizing that what you are in relations with is you, you're doing yet another thing. So how we attend, what we think attention is, what we think is important in our attention becomes what is important in our relations. And because we're relational beings, there is no world without the more than human world. The human and the more than human world. There is no world without all that you are in relations with. So we really want to study what it means to care. And how we care requires both left and right hemispheres. Figuring out and noticing what kind of thinking you're doing when you're dancing, not assuming that you're going right hemisphere, but noticing, how are you caring? What are the words that speak to relationship for you and how you attend that form your attention? What are you caring for? And how do you hold that thing that is more than human? And that includes within your own body being, because we all know that a human is not merely composed of human parts. Humans are composed of the more than human world. So your ability to resonate beyond your own form is huge. What are you doing with that? What are you doing with that kind of care? What do you want to do? What kind of world do you want to create? And if you want to create a new world, don't just pay attention to what you're doing. Notice the how, because it is in the how that we are really making and producing extraordinary change. It's like nobody knows what's happening, and it's happening. It's happening in the how. It appears to be all about what? Nah, it's not. It's how. The interesting thing about the whole formation of contact improvisation was the how became what was important to our relations and to the building of those relations, physical relations. How we touch, how we give our weight, how we experience physics, the physicality of it. Not knowing physics here, but knowing physics in our felt form, in our waters, knowing physics. Okay, I think I'm going to open with that. Open it up to everyone. We're now in discussion. I've laid the playground. This is the playground. What is important here? Just unmute and start talking. Go for it, Gretchen.
I was just so struck by what you said. Attention is prior to function. And I was thinking of newborns and what we look for in a newborn baby. We look for attention.
Yeah.
Can they do that? If they
Right.
can't, what can we do?
Right.
So it's like, it's the foundation.
And not only that, Gretchen, but conversely, if newborn babies don't get and receive attention,
Yeah.
they do not thrive.
Yes, yes, yes.
So both are critical.
Yeah.
Attention is the juice. It's the juice that brings the world about. I just turned it into a what? I don't intend to make it a what.
Recently, I'm asking myself a lot, like, what's the essence of practice of context improvisation? And because what I found out is not, I was taught a lot, and I think everyone heard this. You are not attentive enough, like this phrase or this concept, and I'm trying to get away from it because the amount of attention is, what I found out is like pretty constant. I can't be more or less attentive. It's kind of choices and the way, yeah, the way I attend, like not the
Exactly.
attention itself, like the
Exactly.
amount. There is no amount of it actually. And
Perfect. That's very well said, Alex. Yeah.
and what I'm asking myself a lot now is like what trying to formulate what's the gift of contact improvisation that is like kind of bringing another kind of practice on attentional kind of attentional practice, trying to sort it out a little bit more into words, because it's pretty obvious when I do myself, but when transferring these to other people and sharing and all these, it's, I don't know. That's kind of not a question. I don't even know how to formulate a question out of it.
Well, I think you're going down the right track in that you're asking, you're moving away from the kind of language that, give me your attention, to asking, well, what could that possibly mean? What does attention, how is it that we do this thing that is attention? And if we have been trained to attend in school, which is really just that we've been trained to narrow, to distinguish, to say this is not that. But if we allow attention to also support ambiguity,
Mm.
the things we don't know, the things that will not resolve, and allow ourselves to attend to that as well, to be present. Attending in this sense means to be present with as making choices about the notion of what it means to be present. What is your presence doing in the world? How is the way you are present influencing the world itself? Certainly influencing your experience, but also influencing how you can be experienced. And remember, we are not separate individuals. We are resonant beings. So when one person is attending and another in a new way, and another person catches a ride on that new way of attending, somebody else is going to catch a ride on it. And we want to learn to catch rides on each other. We want to learn to play with our attention. And when I say that, I mean, we cannot grow this thing. We cannot grow the right brain without playing. Because when we play, we allow things to be in between, not this or that. We enjoy possibilities. And as I was thinking about this last night, I think that the thing that for me really is important that Contact Improv brought to my world is that how we inquire, it is inquiry itself. And this is why play is, play is inquiry. It's asking questions. It's like right deep in there. Ooh, if I do this, what will happen? Not knowing. And that kind of engaged inquiry is how we bring the world about. Yeah. Not what we want to know, but how we want to know it.
So I have a question, Nita, Donna.
Go for it, Donna.
When I choreograph, sometimes I'm working with a group, and this is not contact improv at all, but I find that some people won't go along for the ride, and I want to know how to engage with that.
Tell me what they say when they don't want to go for along for the ride.
Kind of like, just give me some steps, show me this. I don't understand, and for me, it's a process of working through it. I don't understand it either, so I don't know how to engage that.
Yeah, so what I do with people is I organize their attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I score attention. So I'll say, okay, so what I would like to see happen is I'd like you to be feeling that back wall. And everything you're doing is going to be in relations to that back wall.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel the back wall with the underside of your foot, or you can feel the back wall with your ass. I don't care. What I'd really like to see is that you play between your foot and your ass. And show me what happens. Now I've organized their attention.
Okay. So,
And if people have their attention organized, they stop looking for steps. Anybody else? What does care mean? How do you want to hold relations? How do we do our relations in ways that are supporting a world we want, rather than one that becomes, I mean, you can look at a city and you know that the shape of a city, all the cement, all the square lines, all that organization is left brain domination. And the more we live in left brain dominated environments, the more it seems reasonable.
I I have a question, Nita, about. So I came up the other day with the score that it had to do with attention, but it also had to do with relationship and the way that I am perceiving something that is apparently outside of me. So basically, I was working with a stone,
Okay.
and the exercise was, do I feel separate from this stone or not? And I was giving the people this question. Do you feel separate from the stone or not separate from the stone? And it was very interesting because some people did feel separate and some didn't. And I was very curious about that. And then I asked them, if you're feeling separate from the stone, can you do something inside yourself that you will no longer feel separate from this stone? And they did all kinds of things. Some pick up the stone, put it in their bodies, put it in their heads, played with it, and people could change that relationship. They could do the shift and then suddenly feel that they're not separate from the stone. And sometimes they couldn't reverse the shift. They couldn't separate themselves again. That was also very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
wonder if you have something to say
a great,
about.
yeah, I think that's a really wonderful experiment. I, and I think it speaks very much to the fact that we can see the world as separate from us, or we can see the world that is us, and that we're constantly making that choice. And we've been trained to see it as separate from us, so we have to get over that training. And the ability to play, and you're putting this being with a stone into a playful place. You know, you might ask the question, how many ways can you think, how many ways can you discover of connecting with a stone? Or of separating from this stone, of making this stone something other than you. And you know, as you're doing that, you're working both different parts of the brain. So you can play with what is it that you're, you know, what's happening here that you want to create. Flexibility is, you know, the choice is always going to be better than no choice. If all we can do is knit the world into a whole, we've got a problem. We have to be able to detail it as well. But to have the detailing dominate, that is a major problem. And that's where we are right now. That's why McGilchrist called it the master and his emissary. Really holding a worldview that is inclusive is what a master does. Holds a whole territory, a country, a nation together, or a relationship together, holds that relationship. The emissary goes out and takes care of little parts of it, details. But when the emissary thinks that they are more important than the master, then having things in context, now we've got a real problem. And that's what's happened here. He brings up a Nietzsche story that is about the master and his emissary, in which the emissary override, you know, but starts to believe he's equivalent to the master and takes over. Yeah, Gretchen.
No. I'm fooling around with my hand warmer.
Okay. So
I
Ingrid,
have a question.
go for
Um,
it, Magali.
Thank you. I would love to create a contact improvisation world community, and it's not. And I wonder what it would mean. And if we take the two half hemisphere, like you are naming them, master and emissary, we can speak with these two. How would it be if they don't have the same values? So I'm trying to make a metaphor to, I have lots of ideas to create a world contact improvisation community, but it's already very difficult in Belgium. So I wonder if you have ideas of what, of course, I don't define what is the community, and maybe it's already created actually, but I think we could apply the subject of today of this wonderful idea I have since 4 years now, I would say.
Well, I think with speaking through the material of today, it is a lovely idea, a really lovely idea. And I would want to have you notice how you hold an understanding of a contact community, what a contact community is.
Yeah, so I have a very little example. One value that I think we all value, it's the case to be said, is in a contact improvisation, the first rule is feeling secure, feeling safe. So as you
Let me stop you, Magali. There are
Yeah?
no rules.
Yeah, of course, it's not really a rule.
Yeah, well,
It's
you just
principle.
created a rule, and that rule is
Okay.
left brain thinking. I just want you,
Okay.
I'm pointing this out. You want it detailed, you want it specific, and you want it without ambiguities. Making rules
Okay, perfect.
just created a situation
Okay.
that somebody's going to have to resist.
So would you change the name then, Nita?
No, I will tell you, absolutely, there are no rules in contact improvisation.
Yeah, I agree. I
So
completely agree.
toss out the notion of a rule.
Yeah,
Safety,
yeah.
now we know that safety is really important. We do know things flourish where there's safety. Where there's care, things blossom. So we want blossoming and care. And
Okay, that
you want that for your community. But
okay.
don't set it up as a rule.
Yeah, perfect.
Set it up as something that you seek. Something you're asking and willing to learn about endlessly. Keep learning what that can possibly be, because you have to get to a place where you value not knowing. Because you cannot do contact improvisation from a position of knowing what it is.
Okay.
I have been doing it for over 50 years and I still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I refuse to go to put my thumb on it and stop it. If I don't know what it is, it's not going to stop. If I know what it is, I just killed it.
Yeah. Rebecca wants to say something.
Yeah. Okay. So that's just a beginning. But Magali, we can get into conversation about this. I would love to be in conversation because I love your vision. I love the fact that you want to feel the community of this whole. There are ways that it's happening. There's many people who have, over the many years, had these this inkling, this idea. Let's figure out those things and let's get in conversation. Thank you for making yourself vulnerable and for speaking up and for letting me come to you with this way because that I appreciate. I appreciate always the speaking and the making yourself, you know, let's make those mistakes. I love the fact that we do things that are culturally understood, but don't work within the culture of contact. And we have to discover them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I bless you, and I want to bless you for that. Thank you. Thank you for speaking up. All of us grew because of you.
All of it, of what?
All of
I
us here grew because of
grew.
you.
Okay, thank
We
you.
got wiser because of you. Yeah. Anybody else? Somebody wanted to speak.
I just had a comment on Magali is actually what was emerging, that a reflection that came up, that community often gathers around questions rather than rules. So to keep an open question
Uh-huh.
already is more of a pulling together kind of
Right.
energy.
Yeah. Now, oh, by the way, there may be rules for things like jams.
Yeah.
Yeah, we set parameters around a jam.
Yeah. By the way, so that you know where it's coming from, I was once in Berlin, maybe 15 years ago, and I saw a paper on the ground for newcomers probably, and there was written, it was not written rules, I don't think so. There were two lines, and one of the two lines was always take care of yourself. Don't hesitate to leave the jam. So indeed, it was an organization principle of the event. It's
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. So we can set rules and values around jams in particular.
yeah.
And but within the dance itself, we look for what works and what doesn't work. How does it work?
And blossom and care is better what we are looking for, like you said. It's if we like to start from values, it would be more constructive to start from blossom and care. I agree with that completely. I was just taking any examples to start from. It's also it might be a long conversation and not the place here, but voila, the seed is done.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Nita, for this conversation. I'm loving this. I'm having a lot of insight and feel my body really lit up in general and everything everyone's bringing. Something that came up for me that I love around the brain conversation, a term I heard some years ago called global coherence. And it has to do with both hemispheres of the brain being synchronized and online and lit up, and a lot of neural connectivity. And I'm hearing that reflected in this, and I'm seeing the metaphor as well of the relationship to self and being, really, the earth and everything, life. And so I really love that frame that you mentioned as well. The when you mentioned, I think it was somebody talking about the wall is like, I don't care what you do, just as long as you're relating to your relationship to the wall. And it's just like I see so much beautiful metaphor in how to be in the world. Yeah, just through this lens of relationship, and just on piggybacking off of Mowgli, is it Mowgli? And just global community around contact improv. I feel like it's already happening to an extent organically, and this is what I really want to happen. And I've gotten to travel quite a bit, and I've seen, actually, I'm pretty sure our friends that are in Portugal right now on Alexa's, I'm pretty sure I've danced with you. I was traveling in 2022 in Portugal, and I went to a jam in Sintra and one in Lisbon, and haven't seen you since, but I'm pretty sure I've danced with you. So just to see, it's happening organically, and I haven't seen these faces since then, but here we are together somehow. So thanks for showing up. And yeah, just global coherence. That's what really was with me, and I feel really lit up by all of this. So thank you for all of it, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's a fun subject, isn't it? Yeah, and I think dancers are so critically important to the world right now. So I want to bless all of you and thank you. Thank you for being in my world and being in support of the work that I care about. And clearly you care about it because you're here. So together, you know, we're sustaining, if not growing, something that seems really critical in this moment. So thank you very, very much. I'll take one last question and then we'll say goodbye. If there's any steamy question still on the floor. I guess not.
I do
guess
have
we
one. I
did
do
it.
have one.
Okay.
If there is space, or maybe
Yeah.
there was someone else talking.
No, go for it.
Okay, so mine is, I think I'm pragmatic on this one, which is I wish I could dance every day, contact improvisation. And I know it can be just me and the earth, but it's not the same without another human being for me. And even with a duet, it's not the same that going to a jam and having like 10 people there to move with. So I wonder if you have any practices that you do on a daily basis that can help support this right brain view of a more holistic attention.
Well, my practice is to stay in conversation with the world every day. I think I am in conversation with beingness itself, with the fact of being, and things show up, and I take everything seriously in a playful way. So, you know, something, what was it that happened yesterday? The smallest little thing can show up, like the way the light falls on something, or the fact that something falls off a table, or, you know, anything. It doesn't, that is to me something I pay attention to. I pay attention to the birds that show up in the trees. I should pay it, and I pay attention when I attend on a bodily felt level to when I remember. I don't always remember, but when I remember I'm dancing, I definitely do. So is there, and for that incredible rush of dancing with one or two people, now that's a unique thing. I don't think that rush shows up in that way in my world. I'm having a hard time becoming an old lady, for instance, because I don't get that rush anymore. Because my body can't do it. I hardly have discs in my back anymore. And I have really thin skin that can't go down on hardwood floors easily without bruising and without hurting. So age is going to show up at some point in some way for each one of us if we're lucky. So that dance really has to expand. But while you can get into that rush, and the rush for me lasted for well into it, it was just, I don't know, fairly close to 50 years. It's amazing. And I can still dance. I mean, I'm still, it's well over 50 years now, but I can still dance, but it's not the same. It's not that same crazy putting myself into places I have no idea where the end result will go. You know, we love it. Oh man, I love dancing on the edge. I just totally, I'm an edge player. It's great joy. I understand it. Yeah. I wish I had easier. I wish I had better. Maybe Gretchen has something for you. Yeah, Gretchen, go for it.
I started doing contact when I was 60 because I heard a talk on it and I said, that sounds like something I could do until I was a really old person. And that's why I started it. And yes, it changes. Yes, it changes, but it is always a really, really important part of my life. And I'm 89. And uh, I have no problem finding partners because,
No,
well, they're really nice.
yeah, people can be really caring.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And it's very important to me.
yeah,
And I don't dance the way young people do. I can't do that. I never could do it.
yeah, 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 yeah. I get it. Hey, everyone, this has been fun. I enjoy it. Gretchen, we want to tell you that you don't have to sign up each week, each Breaking Bread. You're already on the list, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
She's the most diligent, the most consistent human in our world. It's amazing. This has been Breaking Bread with Nita Little, a digital series offered for free, usually each month. But we're taking a brief break in January and February while we're away in Australia. And we'll be back in March with a new topic. And we hope to see you here then too. Also in March, Nita's Composing Emergence Online Mentorship cohort number 11 kicks off in the 12-week format. There's also another format and a whole bunch of other offerings that you can go check out on her website, or write to us or stay on for a moment if you have a question right now. Otherwise, we'll hope to see you back here live in March. Thank you all for joining us.